The Wrong Handbag, a billionaire's public execution. Hold tight, because what you're about to read isn't just a story. It's an emotional earthquake that will make you question everything you think you know about love, betrayal, and true strength. If this story resonates with you, do us a huge favor. Subscribe to the channel, smash that like button, and share this story. Tell me where you're reading from in the comments below. The moment everything shattered. The air in the JFK International Terminal's VIP section tasted of cold marble and reckless money. Ethan Blackwood, the type of billionaire who only carried what his tailor approved, was holding a woman's handbag. A delicate, sapphire blue designer clutch. It dangled casually from his arm, a gesture of convenience for his companion. Saraphina, not devotion. Saraphina, sleek in a cream silk dress, walked beside him with a small, private smile. The kind an ambitious mistress wears when she thinks she's finally won. Ethan didn't look at her. He didn't need to. His grasp on her expensive clutch was answer enough. Their private jet waited, but Saraphina insisted on walking the length of the departures hall. She wanted to be seen. Ethan didn't object. Why would he? For once, he felt in complete control of his narrative. Until he wasn't. It happened in seconds. First, the silence. Then, the weight of the muteness as strangers stopped moving. Conversations cut mid-word. Phones raised, not for calls, but for cameras. Ethan instinctively followed their gazes. His heart slowed to a stop. At the far end of this terminal, standing eerily still amidst the morning chaos, was Olivia, his wife. She wore no makeup. Her face was pale with exhaustion. But the last thing Ethan saw wasn't her face. It was the 4 small children clustered around her. 4 identical children, each clinging tightly to her skirt, their tiny matching coats like ghosts against the polished floor. They're quadruplets. Ethan's hand reflexively opened. Saraphina's clutch slipped from his fingers, hitting the marble with a sound far louder than its weight justified. His mouth moved, but no words came out. Sweat stung him under his costly suit. Olivia didn't move. She didn't speak. She just looked. Not at him. Through him. Her expression wasn't rage. It was worse. It was pity. The public collapse and the wrong woman flash. The first camera caught him. Then another. And another. Passengers who moments before envied Ethan Blackwood were now recording his downfall. Frame by frame, in high definition. "Ethan!" Saraphina hissed, her voice cracking. He didn't hear her. His feet were rooted. His mind spun, uselessly replaying conversations, excuses, plans. Nothing fit this moment. No contingency had prepared him for Olivia standing there, the proof of his abandonment clutched in her trembling hands. The children looked at him, confused. A tiny child pointed a chubby finger, tugging on Olivia's sleeve. "Daddy!" Olivia flinched. Ethan's stomach violently twisted. People were whispering now. Phones angling for better shots. The whispers turned to murmurs, then to audible questions. Is that his wife? Are those his kids? Who is the woman with him? Saraphina backed away, as if physical distance could erase her involvement. She looked from Olivia to Ethan, and back, her lips trembling. She realized too late what everyone else already understood. She was not the woman Ethan belonged to. She was the evidence of his lie. "Olivia." His voice broke like a man who didn't recognize his own name. She finally moved. Slow, deliberate steps toward him. Not to close the distance, but to wound him with every inch of her composure. The children trailed after her. Olivia stopped just short of him. Her voice was barely a whisper, yet every syllable cut him open. "Is that what you carried her for?" She didn't wait for his answer. She didn't need it. Turning to her children, she knelt, scooping the smallest boy into her arms as if to shield him. And then she walked, right past Ethan, past Saraphina, past the reporters now gathering at the entrance. Ethan watched her go, unable to follow, and somewhere in the crowd, a journalist's voice cut through the silence. "Ethan Blackwood, can you explain this?" But he couldn't. Why? How do you explain carrying the wrong woman's clutch when your real life just walked past you, holding your legacy? Audience question. If you were Ethan, what would be the first thing you'd regret in this exact moment? Let me know in the comments. The silence is a weapon. The flashes continued, but Ethan no longer saw them. Not even when the first tears finally fell. "Olivia, wait!" His voice cracked. She didn't. Instead, she stopped midway, turned deliberately, and faced the sea of cameras. Her voice was quiet, firm, unbroken. "I am Olivia Blackwood," she said softly, but the silence was so dense her words spread. "And these are Ethan's forgotten children." The phrase detonated. For the press, for the strangers, for Ethan himself. Gasps, camera shutters clicking non-stop. Even the automated airport announcements seemed to pause, as if the building itself strained to listen. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. "Olivia, don't do this!" He tried to lunge forward, but security, alerted to the crowd escalation, stepped between them. She looked him dead in the eyes. Then she looked away, toward the waiting bodyguards. "Please, escort me and my children." She didn't shout. She didn't plead. She commanded, and the guards hesitated only a moment before obeying, recognizing not the billionaire, but the woman whose grief demanded respect. She approached him one last time, stopping just out of his reach. The children clung to her dress. Ethan barely breathed. Then she leaned in, her lips close to his ear, her voice barely audible beneath the roar of the camera shutters. "They'll remember the man who never picked them up," she whispered, "not the one who carried her bag." And then she was gone. Security flanked her, shielding her from the chaos as they cut a path through the throng. The small figures of the children disappeared into the crowd, swallowed by the flashing lights and raised phones. Ethan's mind screamed, but his body remained paralyzed. Around him, the questions kept coming, louder, hungrier. "Mr. Blackwood, do you deny paternity? Is your company at risk? Is that your mistress?" That last question jolted him. He spun sharply. "Saraphina?" He searched, frantic. But the spot where she had been standing moments before was empty. No cream dress, no trembling hands, no presence. She was gone, vanished in the confusion she had left behind. Ethan looked down, disoriented. Saraphina's designer clutch lay forgotten at his feet. The absurdity of it twisted something deep inside him. The cameras, the noise, the now public, irreversible betrayal. And in that moment, he realized what the world now saw. A solitary billionaire in an airport terminal, surrounded by questions. No wife, no children. Just the burden of a handbag he should never have carried. Don't go anywhere. Before we dive into Saraphina's desperate choice and Olivia's ruthless strategy, please like this video and comment with your predictions. Saraphina's empty suite and Olivia's war room, Saraphina's reckoning. Saraphina huddled on the cold tiled floor of an anonymous borrowed apartment. It had taken less than 12 hours for the press to find her modeling profiles, her old Instagram photos, her interviews about female empowerment. Now, every image had a new caption. The mistress who destroyed a billionaire marriage. Ethan hadn't called. She hated herself for waiting. On the television, analysts speculated about her role in the scandal, as if her life were a side plot in Ethan's downfall. One commentator laughed cruelly. Did she think she was special? That's what mistresses always think. She closed her eyes. Maybe he was right. She thought back to the penthouse apartment. She doesn't understand me, Saraphina. You do. I'm trapped in that marriage. With you, I can breathe. She had believed that was love. How long had she been a replacement? A pawn in Ethan's war against a woman she never truly knew? She looked down. Her phone vibrated. Another notification. Another headline. She let it clatter to the floor. When she finally looked at her reflection, she saw it. The end of the illusion. No glamour. No future. No him. Just Saraphina. And her mistake. I have to get out. Not just out of this room. Out of the city. Out of the story. Out of him. She fumbled for her rideshare app. A destination came to mind. 6 hours away. A place he would never look. Olivia's strategy. The safe house wasn't much. Bare walls, 2 bedrooms. Security cameras covered every exterior angle. For Olivia Blackwood, it was more of a home than the Manhattan mansion she once shared with Ethan. She sat on the edge of a plain leather couch, back straight. The quadruplets slept soundly next door. Her attorney, Lauren Reese, sat opposite her, silent, waiting. He thinks I'm weak, Lauren. He always did, Olivia finally said, watching the steam rise from her untouched tea. He made me feel lucky, special even. I believed him when he said no one else understood his world. When I became pregnant, everything changed. He said it was too soon. He said the timing would hurt his image. I carried our children in silence while he continued his empire. Her voice was too numb to break. I found out about the first mistress when I was 6 months pregnant. Not Saraphina. Someone before her. When I confronted him, he made me believe I was paranoid. Hormonal. He locked me out of the accounts after that argument. Audience question. Why do you think women like Olivia often choose silence over confrontation early in the marriage? Share your thoughts below. Olivia clenched her fists. The twins were born premature. Emergency C-section. I was unconscious. When I woke, Ethan wasn't there. I asked the nurse why he wasn't holding them. She told me he never came. A long silence. He didn't hold his sons because he didn't care if they lived. Lauren's eyes widened. Olivia continued. I once overheard him tell the doctor. He said if they didn't make it, it would be less complicated. He let me lose everything, Lauren. My name, my home, my money, and worst of all, my silence. But not anymore, Lauren stated firmly. No, Olivia nodded. Not anymore. You need to decide now. Do we settle in quiet, or do we burn him publicly? I want the world to know what he did, what he never did. Then tomorrow, we file the motion. Olivia looked toward the closed bedroom door. People think this is about money. It's not. What is it about? History. Her tone was bitter. I will not let my children grow up thinking silence is strength. The confrontation. The enemy is not your enemy. The hotel suite was too perfect. Beige walls, gold accents, sterile luxury. Saraphina sat on the edge of a velvet chair, twisting her trembling fingers. She almost ran when the door clicked open. Olivia walked in. No security, no lawyer, just her. Calm, controlled, frightening. She closed the door softly behind her. Saraphina stood up too fast. Her voice cracked. I am sorry. I didn't know. Olivia raised a single hand. Saraphina fell silent. I know why you called, Olivia said. I need to know if it was all a lie. Olivia tilted her head slightly. You want me to tell you the truth about Ethan? Saraphina nodded. Olivia didn't pace. She didn't lecture. She told the story. I met him when I was your age. 24. He said I was different. Special. The only one who saw the man behind the empire. Saraphina's lips parted. Horror washed over her. He told me his exes didn't understand him, that he felt trapped, that I was his freedom. Saraphina's knees gave way slightly. She sank into the chair. When I became pregnant, he said it wasn't the right time. He said it would damage his future. I believed him. Her eyes flickered then. Briefly. A flash of something raw. I spent my entire first pregnancy alone in a mansion, with my own accounts locked, with staff instructed not to speak to me unless necessary. Saraphina's throat tightened. I thought you were the problem. I know, Olivia said softly. Do you know what Ethan said when I asked him why he never came to the hospital? Saraphina shook her head, tears beginning. Olivia's voice was pure steel. He said, "They'll survive without me." Olivia leaned forward slightly. And that's when I realized something. Saraphina looked up. Broken. Olivia delivered the line with surgical precision. You are not my enemy. Saraphina blinked. You are the next version of me. The silence shattered Saraphina. She sobbed, uncontrollably. Shame and grief washing over her at once. I didn't know. Olivia watched. Not cruel. Not compassionate. Just finished. I believe you. Olivia finally sat down, her posture immaculate. You were not the first, and you won't be the last. I loved him. Saraphina's voice broke like glass. I did too. The new tone was practical. Sharp. You need to decide now. Are you going to keep begging for scraps of his attention? Or are you going to disappear before he destroys what you have left? Saraphina whispered through tears. Why did you come? Olivia's expression finally broke, a glimpse of something maternal. I came so you wouldn't make my mistake. She walked to the door, her hand on the knob. She paused. Then, without turning back, Olivia spoke softly. When he calls, and he will, don't answer. The door opened. Olivia paused. Then she said the last words Saraphina would hear her speak. He only calls when he needs to win. Don't forget to subscribe to see the rest of this epic tale. Hit the notification bell. Olivia's justice. The courtroom execution. The courtroom was colder than Olivia expected. Ricardo sat opposite her. He looked smaller now. The power had left him. Olivia didn't look at him. She didn't need to. Ms. Blackwood, do you wish to speak? The judge asked. Olivia rose, her black dress immaculate, her stance unwavering. When she spoke, her voice carried. I am not here for money. Silence. She let the words settle. I am here for my children. I seek sole custody of my 4 sons, and full control of the family trust allocated to them. A murmur swept through the gallery. Olivia's voice tightened, steel wrapped in silk. For years, Mr. Blackwood ensured I remained legally and financially dependent. He controlled every euro, every decision. When I was pregnant, he isolated me, denied me access to medical decisions, and refused to appear at their birth. She paused. He has never held them. Gasps. Even the judge's eyes flickered. I have documented proof of his financial strangulation, copies of bank records, surveillance footage showing his absence during medical emergencies, and signed declarations from staff confirming his refusal to acknowledge the existence of his children. Ethan said nothing. Olivia turned fully to the judge. I am not asking for justice. A pause. I am taking it. She sat down. Lauren whispered softly beside her. You won. The ruling was swift. Full custody granted to Olivia Blackwood. Control of the trust. Hundreds of millions. Transferred to her authority. Ethan retained visitation rights. Olivia's eyes remained blank at that. She knew he wouldn't use them. When the judge's gavel finally fell, Olivia stood. Ethan remained seated. For the first time, Olivia allowed herself to look at him. Not with hatred, not with fear, with nothing. And that emptiness shattered him more than rage ever could have. The reporters outside clamored for statements. Lauren asked softly, Do you want to say anything to the press? No. She walked out into the sunlight. Cameras flashed. People shouted questions. But she didn't speak. She simply walked. And the world watched. Not Ethan. Not the billionaire. But Olivia Blackwood, a woman no longer silent, a symbol of quiet strength. The price of forgetting and a quiet farewell. Ethan Blackwood now lived in silence. His cliffside villa overlooked an ocean he no longer swam in. The crystal walls shone with sunlight he never noticed. The staff came and went without words. Meals sat untouched. Power had never felt so hollow. Every morning he sat in the same leather chair, watching the news loops. Not about his company. Not about him. About her. Olivia Blackwood. Public appearances. Charity launches. Child health initiatives. Every headline bore her name. Every photograph showed her with 4 boys. His sons. Ethan watched as their faces aged in each new broadcast. He didn't recognize them, because he had never tried. At night, when the staff assumed he was asleep, Ethan sat alone, rewinding the footage of Olivia's court statement. He has never held them. The words haunted him more than any scandal. In his mind, he repeated a question he never found an answer to. Why didn't I? No calls came now. No invitations. His name was currency no one wanted. Powerless. Unloved. Forgotten. That was the price. And he paid it alone. Across town, a different world unfolded. A small, quiet park. Simple swings. Worn benches. The murmur of ordinary life. Olivia sat on a wooden bench, watching her children play. Their laughter wasn't loud, just real. She closed her eyes briefly, breathing in freedom. Then she felt it. A presence. When she opened her eyes, Saraphina was standing across the path. Time slowed. Neither woman moved. Saraphina's hair was shorter now, her eyes clearer. She wore no makeup, no heels, just simple clothes. She blended into the world for the first time. They said nothing, but their gazes met. And that was enough. A look heavy with shared history, pain, betrayal, survival. 2 women, 2 lives, ruined by the same man. 2 lives rebuilt, without him. A child's laugh broke the silence between them. Saraphina's lips trembled, not in sadness, but in relief. She gave a small, respectful nod. And then, she turned. She walked away silently down the path, disappearing into the trail, toward a future she could finally claim as her own. Olivia watched until Saraphina was gone. She didn't pursue her. She didn't speak. She simply turned back to her sons. She didn't need to look over her shoulder. Some wars don't need winners, only endings. Back at the villa, Ethan's drink remained untouched. As the screen flickered in the gloom, Ethan whispered to the empty room. I could have fixed it. No one answered. Because no one was listening. The price of power wasn't losing it all. It was realizing too late what it felt like to have nothing. What did you think of this story of revenge, redemption, and a mother's true strength? Leave your comments, share, and don't forget to subscribe for more impactful stories. The Echoes of the Wrong Handbag, Part 2. If you thought the confrontation was the end, you were wrong. The reckoning has just begun. If you're loving this deep dive into betrayal and ultimate victory, let me know. Share this story with someone who needs to see true strength. The Attic. Ethan's isolation. In the mirrored glass penthouse high above Manhattan, Ethan Blackwood was no longer the master of his domain. He was its prisoner. The air conditioning hummed, but the silence was deafening. He had dismissed his personal assistant. The sight of anyone moving with purpose was an unbearable mockery of his own paralysis. He spent his days roaming the sterile, vacant space, the echoes of his footsteps mocking the family noise that had never been there. The city skyline, once a symbol of his conquest, now felt like a wall keeping him out. His legal team was frantically trying to limit the damage, but every press release they crafted sounded hollow next to the raw, visceral image of Olivia and their 4 boys. "Mr. Blackwood is committed to his role as a father," the statement read. Ethan laughed, a harsh, dry sound. He had no role. He hadn't even bought them a first toy, much less a birthday cake. One evening, he received a thick envelope delivered by special courier. It was from Olivia's attorney, Lauren Reese. Inside, there were no legal documents, only a single, high-resolution photograph. It was a picture taken recently at the small park. Olivia was laughing. A genuine, unrestrained laugh he realized he hadn't seen in over a decade. She was on a swing set, pushing one of the boys high into the air. The sun caught the child's face, pure joy radiating from the image. Flipped on the back, handwritten in Olivia's elegant script, was one sentence. "This is what a fulfilled life looks like, Ethan. You never wanted to be in the frame." Ethan crumpled the photo. His hand shook so violently, he dropped the crystal tumbler of scotch he'd been nursing. The shattered glass spread across the polished hardwood floor, sparkling malevolently. He looked at the shards, then back at the empty space. It was the only tangible damage he had inflicted in weeks. He was powerless to fix the empire, but what truly crushed him was the realization he was equally powerless to break her. Audience question: do you think Olivia sent the photo to hurt him, or to finally close the door on him? Comment your thoughts below. Saraphina's new ascension, the whistleblower. Miles away, in the quiet coastal town where she had fled, Saraphina was not hiding. She was regrouping. The small rented apartment was a world away from Ethan's opulent penthouse, and she found strange comfort in its anonymity. She hadn't answered any of the frantic calls or pleading texts that eventually came from Ethan, just as Olivia had warned. He only calls when he needs to win. Saraphina realized his love had always been a transaction, a way to win his own war against commitment. The memory of Olivia's piercing statement, "You are the next version of me," was the catalyst. It wasn't a curse. It was a warning from her future self. Saraphina opened her laptop. Her old Instagram account was still flooded with hateful comments, but she ignored them. She wasn't logging on for validation. She was logging on for truth. She began compiling. Not about the affair, but about the empire. She remembered the hushed late-night calls Ethan took, the strange offshore accounts he'd mentioned, the time he made her sign an NDA before she even knew what it was for. She realized she hadn't been an accomplice. She had been a discarded piece of evidence. She spent 3 days meticulously gathering every scrap of correspondence, every coded email, every overheard snippet of conversation. She wasn't looking for revenge. She was looking for a way to ensure the next woman wasn't pulled into his vortex. Then, she reached out to an independent investigative journalist known for dismantling untouchable figures. She didn't want money. She wanted something far more valuable. The final headline. 3 weeks later, the world woke up to a new, seismic headline that dwarfed the airport scandal. The article, released simultaneously by several major publications, wasn't about the divorce or the children. It was about Blackwood Global's foundation. The exposé, fueled by Saraphina's inside information and documented evidence, revealed years of financial manipulation, shell corporations, and a massive tax evasion scheme hidden under the guise of charitable giving. It wasn't just a divorce case anymore, it was a federal case. The article included a brief, powerful quote from Saraphina. "I stood by Ethan Blackwood because I thought I loved him. I stepped away because I learned what he did to the people he claimed to love. No woman should be his collateral damage." In the penthouse, Ethan saw the news flash across his enormous screen. The article was a masterpiece of legal and corporate destruction. His empire, which had survived the public humiliation of the handbag, now began to collapse under the weight of its own fraud. The market reacted instantly. The stock plummeted. The phone rang. It wasn't his lawyer, nor his PR agent. It was the FBI. Ethan stood up, his hand outstretched, but not toward the phone. He looked at the spot where Saraphina's forgotten handbag had landed just weeks before. He realized the real handbag, the metaphorical one he had refused to carry. His responsibilities, his commitments, his children, had returned to crush him. Meaningful ending. The unseen legacy. In the quiet park, a few days after the news broke, Olivia was helping her sons build a makeshift fort out of branches. She wasn't watching the news, but the world was still watching her. The public had hailed her as a hero, a symbol of quiet resilience. As the sun set, she looked at her boys. 4 identical, energetic, complicated souls who were finally thriving. They were unaware of the chaos their father faced, focused only on the simple joy of their fort. She thought about Ethan. He had lost his wealth, his reputation, and his freedom. But Olivia realized she had already taken what truly mattered. The future. She had taken control of the narrative, not by fighting Ethan's mistresses or his money, but by protecting her children's history. They would grow up knowing their mother chose their well-being over silence, and that their legacy was built on truth, not on a lie. She didn't feel triumph, only a deep, profound peace. She picked up one of her sons, held him close, and kissed his forehead. The most valuable thing a man can forget is not a handbag, but the people who carry his name. Ethan Blackwood finally learned the difference between owning the world and being connected to it. What do you think of Saraphina's final move? Was it revenge or justice? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to smash that subscribe button for the next twist. The Echoes of the Wrong Handbag, Part 3. The Price of Freedom. The corporate giant has fallen, but true freedom is harder to achieve than vengeance. If you followed this story from the start, you know every choice has a consequence. Like this part. If you believe Saraphina made the right decision, and subscribe for the final chapter. Saraphina. Building a new shore. In her quiet coastal town, Saraphina watched the fire she helped start burn out on the news. The fallout from the Blackwood Global Expose was catastrophic. Arrests were made, assets were frozen, and Ethan's name was synonymous with corporate deceit. Yet, Saraphina felt no joy. The satisfaction of justice was cold and fleeting. She realized her identity had been so tightly wrapped around being Ethan's woman, or the whistleblower, that she didn't know who Saraphina was without him. She began volunteering at a local women's shelter, a place focused on helping women rebuild their lives after emotional and financial abuse. One afternoon, she met a young woman named Leah, who was terrified to leave her controlling, wealthy fiancé. Leah spoke the familiar language of isolation. He says no one else will understand me. He controls my bank accounts for my own good. Saraphina saw her own younger self reflected in Leah's eyes, beautiful, ambitious, and blinded by the illusion of luxury. He's giving you a cage wrapped in gold, Saraphina said softly, her voice steady. The real currency isn't the credit card he gives you, it's your voice. Once you lose that, you lose everything. Leah hesitated. But I'll lose my entire future. No, Saraphina corrected, leaning in. You're trading a false future for a real one. Freedom is expensive, but the price of staying is your soul. Saraphina didn't tell Leah her name or her past, but she offered a genuine empathy that Leah desperately needed. In that moment, Saraphina wasn't a victim or a villain. She was a guide. She was finally building something that wasn't reliant on a man's approval, a legacy of quiet help. She had paid the price for her mistake, and now she was investing in her own redemption. Audience question. What is the biggest lesson Saraphina learned about true empowerment? Share your insight in the comments. Olivia. The redefinition of home. Olivia had moved the boys out of the safe house and into a modest, spacious home in a neighborhood known for its strong community and good schools. She chose it because it had a sprawling backyard and a giant oak tree perfect for climbing. It had warmth, noise, and life. Everything the silent mansion lacked. She was navigating the complexities of co-parenting. With herself, there were no joint decisions, only her decisions, and the quadruplets were flourishing in the stability. One rainy Saturday, while organizing old storage boxes, she came across a dusty jewelry box from her first few years with Ethan. Inside, she found a small, silver key, the key to a bank-safe deposit box he had insisted on opening for her before they were married, telling her, "For emergencies, my love. Something just for you." She had forgotten about it entirely, dismissing it as another empty gesture. Driven by a strange curiosity, Olivia visited the bank. The box wasn't empty. It contained a leather-bound journal written by Ethan's mother, who had passed away when Ethan was a teenager. The entries weren't about love or wealth. They were about fear. Ethan is so much like his father, obsessed with control. If he can't own it, he destroys it. I've tried to teach him empathy, but he only understands transactions. I worry one day he will build an empire so big he will forget he has a heart. The final entry, written the day before she died, was a desperate plea. If you ever read this, Olivia, please save my grandchildren from his isolation. Break the silence. Don't let them be unseen. Olivia sat in the bank's quiet, sterile room, tears finally streaming down her face, not tears of bitterness, but of understanding. Ethan hadn't forgotten how to love. He had been taught to view people as assets by his own father. The journal was his mother's desperate attempt to warn the only person she thought might listen. Olivia hadn't just fought Ethan. She had unwittingly finished the war his mother had started decades ago. And she had won, not for money, but by ensuring her children were seen, heard, and cherished. Ethan. The last visitation. Ethan Blackwood was granted a brief, supervised window for visitation at a neutral facility, as required by the court, before his incarceration. He knew he was going to prison. His only remaining asset was the pride he refused to relinquish. Olivia brought the boys, but she kept a respectful distance. She stood with Lauren Reese, observing from a small viewing area. Ethan, dressed in a muted suit that couldn't hide his weight loss and the hollowness in his eyes, sat alone at a low table. The four boys approached him tentatively. They didn't know this man. He was a stranger with a famous face. The oldest, Leo, pointed at a picture the center provided. "Mister," he asked, "do you want to draw with us?" Ethan looked at the crayon. He, who had commanded thousands, was now being asked to command a wax stick. He couldn't do it. His hand felt alien. I don't know how," he mumbled, a flicker of true shame crossing his face. The smallest boy, Finn, climbed onto the chair beside him, undeterred. Finn didn't ask for a drawing. He simply placed a small, worn stuffed animal, a faded blue elephant, on the table between them. "He's lonely," Finn whispered, his voice innocent. "He needs a friend to be less quiet." Ethan looked down at the elephant. It was the handbag of his real life, a small, utterly simple object, representing the emotional burden he was incapable of carrying. The guards signaled time was up. The boys left, waving politely to the mister, before running toward their mother. Ethan remained seated. He didn't look at Olivia. He picked up the blue elephant. It was soft, comforting, and utterly meaningless to him. He had everything he thought he wanted: silence, space, and no emotional demands. As the guards escorted him away, Ethan didn't fight. He clutched the elephant, but not out of sentiment. He clutched it because it was the last piece of proof that he had once been offered a connection, and he had refused to take it. The greatest tragedy of Ethan Blackwood's life was not losing his empire, but realizing in his last free moment that he had already lived his entire life in a self-imposed prison. The final thought, the true inheritance. Years passed. Ethan Blackwood became a footnote in financial history. Olivia Blackwood became an influential advocate for women facing financial abuse, her story inspiring legislative changes. She never remarried. Her love story was with her children and her mission. Saraphina continued her work, finding purpose and self-worth far removed from the spotlight. She occasionally saw Leah, who was now in college, thriving and free. One sunny afternoon, Olivia and her 4 grown, confident sons visited the small, quiet park. They played a simple game of catch near the old oak tree. As the boys laughed, Olivia looked at them. They had inherited the strength of her silence and the courage of her voice. They carried no designer handbags or corporate titles. They carried their name, forged in honesty and resilience. This was the ultimate inheritance. What do you believe was the most powerful moment of redemption in this story? Was it Saraphina's testimony or Olivia's choice to forgive the past? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that challenge your perspective.